The History of Smallpox by me, Shannon Lopez. So here we see a brief timeline of smallpox. This is kind of like a brief history of some of the important points in the smallpox disease. So we see that in around 3,000 years ago, around 8,000 BC, smallpox was said to have arisen in Africa. Then during the Egyptian-Hittite War in 1350 BC is when we were introduced to the first smallpox epidemic. Then in 1022 AD, that's where we are introduced to the process of variolation by a Buddhist monk when she decided to grind up the scabs of a smallpox victim and blow it into the healthy person's nostrils. This was seen as a form of protection and possible vaccination of smallpox. Then Edward Jenner in May 1796 AD inoculated a little boy with cowpox after a maiden had said that she had developed cowpox and then is practically immune to smallpox. So he tested this out on a little boy when he inoculated him with cowpox and then later smallpox virus and saw that the kid had become immune, developing the smallpox vaccination. And then in 1976, smallpox was completely eradicated due to effective vaccination being offered around the world and thanks to the World Health Organization eradication efforts. So I know you must be thinking, so how did the smallpox pandemic occur? Now, smallpox is said to be an epidemic if you look at it from where it started or the different time periods that it arose in different communities. However, it is considered a pandemic considering that it never went away in other countries when other places such as London started seeing smallpox in their own communities. Now this picture showcases a kid on the right that received Edward Jenner's vaccination and the one on the left, and the effects of smallpox on the boy on the left. And this was during a time where vaccination was questioned, so there was a lot of anti-vaxxers, and sadly this boy had to pay the price. So let's start from the beginning, talking about what causes smallpox, which is the variola virus. So the variola virus is a member of the genus Orthopoxvirus in the Poxvirinae family. Now the genus Orthopoxvirus might sound familiar to you because it also contains the diseases monkeypox and cowpox as well. And this virus was introduced 3,000 years ago in Egypt or India when an individual came into contact with someone or something that was holding the variola virus. So how is smallpox transmitted, meaning the variola virus? So there's two ways that the virus can be transmitted. The first way is that it can enter the host body through oropharyngeal or respiratory mucosa, meaning when somebody like sneezes or coughs, those virus particles enter the air and anybody nearby could easily inhale those droplets. Additionally, you could also contract it when you are introduced or come in contact with smallpox pustulates or crusted scabs. Now, this form of transmission is less contagious and it's because the fibrogen matrix tends to hold the virus in place. Now, when something such as a bacteria or virus is within the fibrogen matrix, this limits the growth and spreading of the virus to other hosts. There is no animal reservoirs, no insect vectors have ever been found to have caused the virus. The only hosts and thing capable of transmitting the virus are humans. Now, after transmission, you might be wondering what is the effect of this virus in the body and what does it do in the body? So to understand that, you have to understand that smallpox is considered an acute contagious disease. meaning that the onset of the disease and the progression of that disease on the body and its symptoms are very rapid and could easily be passed on to one host from another. Once the virus enters your body, it rapidly advances towards your lymph nodes, and after the third or fourth day of carrying it, it then proceeds to the blood and spreads to your bone marrow and additional lymph nodes. And then during around the 8 to 12 day, that's when the virus begins, that's in the blood, begins to show symptoms, such as fever and toxemia in the host. And then at this stage, the virus is localized in the blood vessels of the dermis and the oral mucosa, which leads to initial anathium and exanthium. By the 14th day, the host becomes infectious, and large amounts of the virus are located in the kidneys, liver, spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. Basically, throughout the whole entire body. Your whole entire body is infected. And then after that, skin lesions start to develop from the dilation of capillaries in the dermis and the swelling of endothelial cell vessel walls. The lesions spread to epidermis, where cells become so swollen that they eventually increase in size to the point that they burst. Following the vesicular lesions, pus accumulates as a result of that. And then when the pus eventually dissipates, this leads to the scabbing of the lesions. And on the right, you see kind of like a diagram that shows how in the beginning, the damage to the body based off of smallpox, the virus, is not that bad, and then as the days progress, it gets very strong to the point of death. So how the virus is capable of affecting the body so drastically is that it contains a complement regulatory protein within the virus itself. And this inactivates the host's complement system by acting as a cofactor for serine protease factor 1. This is done and is a result of cleaving C3b and C4b, and this will protect the host from being attacked by the complement cascade, meaning that the complement cascade can't affect the virus and cannot kill it, which makes it very easy for it to spread and grow within the body. And on the right, you have a diagram of the virus and some of its key parts. So who contracted smallpox? The hosts of the variola virus range from younger children to older adults all over the globe from places such as Egypt, Africa, London, China, and even the US. These populations worldwide were affected with smallpox for 12,000 years. However, the most successful populations were those of children, ages 5 through 19 years of age. To our right, we have a map displaying exactly at what times that smallpox ceased to exist in these communities. The children's environments also played a major role in what made them so susceptible to smallpox. As it is, children have developing immune systems, so it also makes it easier for them to be a host to the virus. But on top of that, children tend to have a high amount of close contact with each other. Upper class kids who were able to go to school were in such tiny classrooms that even if one kid sneezed or one kid coughed, it could easily affect the whole classroom of kids. Additionally, poor kids who might have been playing out in the streets, such as the streets in London, which were very unhygienic, could easily come into contact with human waste and human bodily fluid that contain the variola virus. Even though adults weren't the susceptible population, they were still badly affected by smallpox. Adults ages 45 and up had the highest death rates from smallpox. And as we know, the older we get, the weaker our immune system gets. So the harder it was, no matter upper class or if they were lower class, it was to fight off smallpox. And back then, medicine was still developing, so it could not protect them from the effects of smallpox. And as we also see, hygiene wasn't looked at as the top standard. So there was bad hygiene back then as well. On top of that, younger adults, no matter if they were higher class or lower class, still had to enroll and enlist in the army. And army conditions are terrible, bad hygiene, and barely any medicine supplies. So, Any open wound they had, or any soldier that got sick from the virus could easily spread it to another soldier through their open wound, through coughing, through sneezing, anything such as that. How did smallpox spread throughout the world? Well, thanks to exploration and new trading routes, it was quite easy for smallpox to spread throughout the world. As we found new communities with new resources, it was also easier to find new diseases. It's said that the Great Voyage of the European colonization carried smallpox to the Americas and to Africa south of the Sahara. And it also got transported across the Atlantic by Europeans and their African slaves. This meant that thanks to trading and trading routes and traders themselves, any trader who was a host to the virus could pass it along to the next stop of their trading route. And this is my works cited page showing all my sources that I used in order to create this PowerPoint.